I love drawing poses and I'm fascinated by very flowy, expressive ones I see in ballet pose references, for example. While working on today's project, I could combine this with two other things I like a lot, Genshin Impact and designing outfits. I decided to draw 9 Genshin Impact characters in a Ballet AU. In this video, I'll talk about each one, but before that, I mentioned the preparation I did and inspirations I had for this. A big inspiration and what I often use as reference was the art of Lucy Holt on Instagram. She drew some Genshin Impact characters in a ice skating AU. I found the way she draws and renders anatomy and clothes amazing, so I wanted to study it, which I got to do while drawing the illustrations. For the poses, I had already drawn many ballet or other dynamic poses during my daily drawing habit, where I draw 3 poses each day, and I sorted them to the characters. Initially, I only planned to do one full body one for 3 characters, but since I enjoyed drawing those 3 characters a lot and I wanted the images to look more interesting, I decided to do 9 characters with 2 poses for 7 out of them, 1 full body one and 1 half body one. Sorting the poses so that the composition of the illustrations would look nice took a bit of time, but this was good so that later on I could only focus on drawing and not determining the poses. I learned from my experience of drawing Genshin Impact characters for Mermaid, where I took around half an hour for each character to figure out the poses. For 9 characters that would be 4.5 hours to determine the poses. Here I took around 3 hours. For the outfits, I was inspired by different Pinterest references. Here I didn't plan beforehand, I instead just designed the outfits while drawing each character. I made sure I had a variety of outfit cuts, meaning I would go for something new for each one. The in-game designs served as inspirations for adding accessoires and patterns as well. Now we move on to talking about the characters. The first character I drew was Venti. Here I went with only 1 pose, and I've never drawn the legs in a position like this before, which is why I had a lot of difficulty with making the legs work, for once with line art but also with the shading. Even though I had a reference, I adjusted it slightly to fit more to Venti's proportions. I wanted to do a slight indication of anatomy, but not so he would look too muscular, since Venti to me would still have cute younger proportions. The feet here were very challenging to draw as well, especially the upper one. I was unsure about how bent the feet should be. I wanted to go for short pants, since that way I could practice some skin shading of the legs. For the outfit, I added a pattern and frills. Frills fit really well to Venti to me. Something I noticed a lot of ballet dancers wear are cuffs. I added these for Venti as well, but I'm not too sure about the folds. When coloring, I tried out including pink as well, but I only went with turquoise, black and white in the end. For the lighting, I was really unsure about if I wanted to do a light from the left or the right. I paid attention to the silhouette it would form through the body part in shadow, and in the end I went with light from the right. Now we're moving on to Zhao. In the full body pose, Zhao was viewed from the side. This wasn't too difficult to draw, especially for heads when I only have to draw the side profile. I'm done faster since I don't have to worry about the facial symmetry. For this, the one thing I struggled with, along with, as always, the feet, was the butt shape and how rounded it should be. The in-game patterns on Zhao's cape around his pants was what I drew on the tight shirt of his outfit. Then I included wider purple pants, but I don't like how the folds for them look too much. I also added some gloves, and at first I noticed that the pattern would be on different sides of the arm for them, so I changed this up in the end. The color palette for this illustration included purple, pink and black colors. I used mainly one color along with black in all the outfit designs. The next character I'll talk about is Wanderer. The pose here was pretty challenging. We have a foreshortened upper body, upper head angle and very bent legs. I included some arrows to clarify the movement Wanderer would be in, because I had a bit of a hard time with figuring out how the hair would flow or fall at first. I determined his head would be moving upwards, but gravity would be pulling the hair downwards. The feet here turned out a bit too flat to me at first. He has the outfit showing the least skin from all the ones I designed for this project, since I went with a long sleeve shirt with some patterns inspired by his in-game design, but I left a few parts of it open. Then I included wider short pants, and for the lower legs they were covered with these ballet leggings. When the whole body is covered by the outfit, I find having a part of it be wider and a part tighter gives it a nice silhouette. A body tight suit can look nice too though, if the body's anatomy looks good. To portray the tighter material of the shirt, I made sure to include lots of small folds. I was unsure about adding some flowy parts for the outfit and only went with some at the hip in the end. For the pants colors, I used a gradient. The overall colors I went with were similar to his in-game design, including blue, black and turquoise. I just left out white. The lighting for this illustration is from the upper left. I was inspired by my reference for this. Now for Chongyun, the Genshin Impact character I've probably drawn most often. He's my favorite and I also drew him on my birthday, which was very nice. The full body pose here looks rather elegant to me. For this one I was a bit unsure about how far the butt should stick out. How I want to draw butts is something I haven't paid that much attention to yet in my art, but this project got me to think more about this. I mostly draw the upper body and legs from the front. At first the chest for the half body pose was too high up and the hand in the back was too big. For his outfit I added 3 flowy parts with a similar pattern to his in-game design and some cuffs. For drawing the cuffs I'm not that happy with how the folds turned out, they look too simple to me. Next up is Ether. Here I only drew one pose. I thought just this one pose fits into a square image nicely. I usually pay attention to how the art would look in a square format since I upload it to Instagram and the thumbnails there are square. Sometimes I just crop my image so it looks nice for the thumbnail though. Drawing his body, at first the frontal lifted up leg looked way too flat to me here. I also struggled with getting a nice looking butt shape. For the upper body, it wasn't arched enough at first. The chest was also too low, and since I wasn't that happy about the upper hand position, I changed it up as well. His arms were way too long at first too, so I resized them. I like to pay attention to the common things I draw differently from my references to be aware of my natural tendencies and common mistakes I might make, so I can look out for them in the future. For his outfit, I wanted him to have a flowy cape made up of either 2 or 4 parts. In the end, I went with 2, similar to what I saw in my reference. I really like gold with pink and blue, so these were the colors I used for the cape. I think the shading of this cape could probably look nicer, so it's more like translucent fabric. The rest of his outfit was rather simple and very inspired by his in-game design with the star at his chest. When adding his braid, I wanted it to align nicely with the whole pose and cape. Now we move on to Xingqiu. In the full body pose, the upper body looked too long and stretched out to me at first. You'll see I adjusted it later. Also for the left leg, for the viewer it's the further right one. You can see it's foreshortened. Here I think the legs might look a bit flat and the upper body too defined with the muscle lines. I discovered that I prefer to not use lines for anatomy indications and instead focus on shading for portraying the anatomy while drawing this. The silhouette of the whole body has to look really nice for this though. I saw this kind of side cut in the outfit in my reference. I wanted to include Xingqiu's longer sleeves from his in-game outfit though, so figuring out a nice way the shirt would be cut under the armpit was difficult to me. I'm not sure if I liked how it turned out. The shirt would be asymmetrical with this cut part only on one side to me. How long his pants should be was something I was unsure about, but I definitely wanted to do short pants. This outfit looks probably the closest to the in-game outfits from all the ones I drew. Next up is Kazuha. Here I used a pose where I had marked the anatomy already. I sometimes do this during my daily practice. For the full body pose, the pony in his hairstyle was too wide and a bit flat at first. I really liked the cut of Kazuha's shirt in-game, so I used a similar one for his shirt here. I just added a bow in the front. I also added small earrings. I find it really cool how many Genshin characters have earrings. Kazuha doesn't have any in-game though. I always like adding small accessoires like these, similar to necklaces and so on, to make the outfit not be as plain. I imagined he'd have this skirt that is tied with 2 strings in the front. I was unsure about the length of the pants, but went with shorter ones, and for colors I used ones like in game at first, including red, white and black, but I decided to go for a red to yellow gradient and black in the end. I also noticed that in the frontal pose the shirt was too high up compared to the other pose. The bow at the front was also a bit flat. The foreshortening of the arm was interesting here. I always try to imagine 3D cylinders to make sure I portray it well. Especially when adding in accessoires like armbands or when drawing the sleeves, this is useful. The face symmetry here wasn't working to me at first. I noticed I didn't have the same amount of hair strands on each side, and balancing this out helped. Then I also added too many blue spots to me at first. I added more variation in light and color since I saw it in my references from Lucy Holt, and I saw that other artists I like do this as well. Moving on to Albedo. Here I started with only this full body pose, and it was definitely one of the most complicated poses I drew. It included lots of foreshortening. The arm in the back was a bit too big at first probably. I switched up the foot's position from a straight to a standing one since him holding this pose with stretched out feet would be unrealistic to me. I'm not a ballet dancer, but the reference I had was from a ice skater who had their foot flat on the ground, so I thought this would make sense. I'm not too happy with how the left foot turned out. It looks a bit blocky and not that elegant. The hands were difficult to draw here. At first I was unsure if I wanted to go for a blue or brown shirt, but I went with a blue one in the end. The cut of it reminded me a bit of a elven-like outfit. I added a belt, a longer cape as well as some leg or arm accessoires and stars on the outfit. And the last character I'll talk about is Heizo. The full body pose here was completely from the back. Doing some back anatomy for this was a nice challenge. For the other pose it was sideways, which meant here I didn't draw any face from the front, since drawing faces from the front usually takes me a pretty long time because of figuring out the symmetry and volume of the hair. I was done with this illustration a bit faster than with the other ones. In the full body pose, the arms were way too big compared to the body, which I adjusted later on. With ballet poses, the anatomy can be a bit exaggerated, and here I paid attention to this when drawing the standing legs, trying to keep a good balance between having them be flowy and straight. At first I also thought about giving Heizo wider pants, but I went with a skirt-like cape and leggings for his outfit. I also included this cross at the back. Since the pose was from the back, I wanted there to be a nice cut of his outfit. Then I also added a flowy cape around his arms and a small hair clip. I think I could have added more hair accessoires for the other designs as well, but I only got the idea for it here. That would be it for each character, and now let's finally go over some things I learned from drawing these illustrations. I hope you can make use of this as well and get inspired by seeing the illustrations. Let's start with anatomy. You'll see I included a bit more anatomy indications as I improved at drawing and shading anatomy throughout this project. What I would still want to change about how I draw anatomy would be to add more small changes of direction. My anatomy looks too blocky and not flowy enough to me. I learned more about anatomy from Kotari College on YouTube at the time of drawing this project. I could apply what I learned when shading. I would, for example, think to myself what muscle would form what shadow, which muscle am I portraying here, and so on, which was good to practice. Something I noticed was often off when I drew the poses compared to realistic proportions or the proportions. Lucy, whose art I was referencing as well, was the upper body length. I saw that my upper bodies often tend to be too short, which leads to the arms looking too long. The elbow would not be where the waistline is, for example, and instead further down. Some adjustments to the proportions you use in your art can be up to stylistic preferences. I myself was questioning how realistic or muscular to make the characters look, so they look a bit muscular but not too adult. For younger, cuter characters, making the waist as well as the shoulders be more narrow can help. Because of this, I was unsure if I wanted to use more realistic, longer upper bodies or shorter ones. And as you might have noticed, a common thing I had a problem with while drawing were the feet. Because of this, I want to focus on drawing nice feet shapes in the future. Most of the time I draw shoes rather than feet, but getting a good basic shape of the foot down is really helpful when drawing shoes as well. When comparing my art to Lucy's, a difference I saw as well was how the folds look. I don't use many folds, which tends to make the characters look simple and flat. I was also questioning how many of the folds to portray with lines or with shading. Both ways can give the illustration a different look. For the shading step in each illustration, I used one shading layer focusing on just the anatomy and one with regular shadows. I used to only do regular shadows, but especially for lots of skin-tight clothing and expressive poses like here, making the anatomy stand out by having a layer only focused on this worked really nicely to me, since that way I could focus on only rendering the anatomy for once and then pay attention to how the lighting would cast shadows over the overall form of the body here. I tried out different lighting scenarios sometimes. Lucy added a blue light on top in some parts of her illustration. Since I, as mentioned in the beginning, was inspired by her, I also experimented with adding some blue hues into my shadows. And finally, as a small bonus for every person that got here, I'll also share my notes from analyzing how Lucy drew her characters. I use this as a guide while drawing the characters here. It's always good to study and learn from the artists you look up to, so I hope this is helpful to you as well. The way Lucy would use lines is to add them around the silhouette of different body and outfit parts. Other than that, she pretty much only used painterly shading for the clothes. There often were fold silhouette lines transitioning into painterly shaded folds. I also noticed that she mostly draws a clear silhouette that hasn't many folds included in it. I simplified her shading into 3 shades: light, shadow 1 and shadow 2, but since it is painterly, you mostly have soft transitions but sometimes more sharp edges. Small wrinkles, for example, have a rather sharp shadow to convey the tightness of the clothes. Some spots of the character also have a bit of a hue shift or color added. For the skin, this can be reddish, for the outfit more bluish, but other than that, Lucy uses rather desaturated shadows. Finally, she also separates parts of the body with added light sometimes. This adds a bit more depth to the illustration and brings more attention to the head, which often has a lot of contrast. That's it for my small analysis of her illustrations. I hope you could gain some insights from this too. Comment which of the illustrations or outfit designs you like the most, and if you have any other AUs you would like to see me draw Genshin Impact or other characters in, you can also tell me about that. I hope you enjoyed the video and thanks for watching. Bye!